to our retirement class tonight. My name is Bill Kearney. If you look in your folder, you probably put a picture there with me. And I'm with Integrated Financial Concepts. We are located right here in Mooresville, just down Raleigh School Road. And just to give you our landscape, I'm independent. I don't work with a Charles Schwab or Merrill Lynch or anything like that. Completely independent from groups like that. The lovely lady you met when you walked in is my office manager. She's also my wife, more importantly, and mother's my children. Her name is Natasha, and so that's kind of what our group is for what we do here. So I want to welcome you guys tonight. Our class will take about an hour, hour and 15. I do like for it to be interactive, but I also value your time. So if we start getting too many questions, I'll be here and I'll answer anything you want afterward too. So we might hold some of them until the end. Okay. I always forget this, so I'm going to do this right now before going further. If you wouldn't mind, inside your folder there is something called an event registration form. If you would take that out, we're going to use it a couple of times in the class, but if you would fill your name and address out on that. The reason I need you to do that in your handwriting is the IRS prefers it if you do it in your handwriting than if I do it in my handwriting. And I would like to be able to deduct my expenses for doing this if that's okay with you all. So what we'll do is we'll turn those in when we're done as well. So take a minute or two to do that. And the title of the course is called How Should I Invest My Money Now? And I don't want that to be misleading at all. We're not going to talk about specific investments or a great new stock tip or anything like that. This is more about a philosophy of what to do as you move closer to retirement, maybe an idea or a way to kind of plan your income for retirement. And what outflows from that are probably some investment choices you might make. Let me tell you what this class isn't. This class is not a sales event. I'm not selling anything tonight, so relax. We're not going to close the door until you buy a timeshare or anything like that, okay? So nothing's sold here tonight. I would, and I do desire to hopefully get a chance to sit down with each one of you one-on-one, more personal level in my office, and maybe discuss some of the questions that aren't answered in this class. So we'll talk to you about how to do that. If you want to do that at the end, we'll go into that a little bit more. You guys need a folder. Didn't get one? Does everybody else have a folder and your coins? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Those are plastic. You probably don't want to try to eat those. Okay. So the very top of that event form there's a scale from 1 to 10. And I always like to start out my meetings or my classes and ask people, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being you feel very uncomfortable, very uneasy about things, and 10 being I feel wonderful about my finances as I look towards retirement. Why don't you take out your pen and mark between 1 and 10 in there. 1, hey, I'm really not comfortable with where we are, where we're going. And 10, hey, the sky is blue, everything is wonderful, we feel great about this. Where would you put yourself if you had to mark yourself on that scale? And I always like to tell people too, if you're here, you fill that out, and you're a 10, I probably can't help you, okay? Conversely, if you're a 1 or 2, I don't know if I can help you either. But if you're anywhere in between, I think you'll probably get a lot out of this class tonight, okay? There's me again, and my information, of course, is in the folder if you need it. This is all the stuff. I've been doing this just about 10 years now, and I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the stories that have come up over those 10 years that have led to what we're going to talk about tonight. This right here is just, I hope everybody can see this. I know the lighting in here is a little bright. But that's about as small a print as we're going to have, I think, tonight. Okay? But this is literally just telling you that this is a course that is general in nature. I'm not giving anybody specific investment advice. However, if you take something from this class and you do it and it works out really well and you want to give me credit for it on my Google site, I'll be happy to take credit for it. But other than that, this is just of a general nature. Okay? So when I talk to people about retirement and when people come in to see me, I think there's about 3 questions that come up generally that are really the core issues behind all of this. Okay? First question I get is, how do I grow my retirement assets from where I am right now? how do I preserve or protect them from things like taxes, market risk, the expenses I'm going to have in retirement, inflation, all sorts of things like that, healthcare costs. And that leads to the third question, which is really where the conversation generally goes. How much income can I reasonably expect to get from my retirement assets? How are they going to carry me through retirement? Because I think that at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. If you're working hard, you're saving money, you're putting it aside, what is the purpose for that? Well, the purpose for it is so that it can do something for you as you transition into a different phase of life. Okay? So how much income can I get from it? I always like to say that the retirement idea is more of a journey. And where we are is at the top of the screen over here, and we're trying to get to a destination down at the bottom, which is known as Peace of Mindville. Okay? Peace of Mindville. And the thing about this journey is that all along this road, trying to get to Peace of Mindville, there are different, what I call retirement risks that are going to pop up. Okay? You have longevity risk, which simply means the risk that you may outlive your assets. Okay? You have inflation risk, which is that your assets will not grow or keep pace with inflation, which is eroding your purchasing power. You've got excess withdrawal risk, which means, hey, we're taking out a little bit too much from our accounts each year to keep afloat. Market and miscalculation risk, which we'll talk about. Sequence of return risk. This has to do with when you get the gains and losses in your accounts, your investment accounts. And then rising tax risk. And the thing about these retirement risks is that essentially any one of them can derail you as you try to get to Peace of Mindville. And I really feel like if they're not accounted for properly, you end up somewhere else, which is known as somewhere elseville. And somewhere elseville is generally not where you want it to be. Okay? So the whole point of this is how do we make sure we don't end up there? Now, this is the interesting thing about the retirement planning process. And by the way, I wanted to ask you guys before I go any further, how many of you have been to an event like this before? Maybe it was a dinner seminar or an educational event, a few of you. So you kind of know that the way this works is this is just an educational event for all of this. And so this is a big piece of what I've found to be the problem here. I've been doing this for just about 10 years, and every family that comes into my office, I ask them the same question. When you sat down with your current advisor and you went through your retirement planning, they gave you a retirement income plan. Did you happen to bring it with you? Right? Now, out of several hundred families, how many people do you think actually have a retirement income plan? Guess? Probably on a handful, right? And I kind of find that interesting. If you think about this whole period of life, we're living longer than ever before. So if you think about this could be a journey that you're on for 15, 20, 30 years. Planning for retirement back in the 1950s was totally different. People would retire and live 5 to 7 years. That's about what life expectancy. It's not hard to plan for 5 to 7 years, right? Now you're talking about something that could be 15, 20, 30 years. And I find it amazing that most people don't have an income plan. And I think the reason for that is trust. I think it's really hard for people to find somebody in my field that they can trust, that they really know they can trust. Because you hear the stories on TV, you hear about the Bernie Madoffs and people like that, so how do you know you can trust somebody, right? And I always say, look, if you took 100 of the guys like me, advisors, and put us up in front of a room, how many of us would you really want to trust with your money, your finances, that kind of thing? But it doesn't change the fact that you need to have a plan. And so here's what I find people do, okay? They build a plan that looks something like this, okay? It's kind of like building a car where you get a chassis from Ford, a steering column from Chevy, engine from Volkswagen, tires from Jeep, and a transmission from Honda, okay? You've got an insurance guy over here, you've got an investment guy here, a CPA here, an attorney there, and none of these people talk to each other. And if they do, they may provide conflicting information across, right? So it's kind of like building a car like this. Will this car run? Yeah, it probably will. Will it go the distance? Maybe, maybe not, okay? So about 4 or 5 years ago, colleague of mine named Steve Lewitt, he and I do exactly the same thing. He's up in Illinois. Was having a meeting with some manufacturers in Pennsylvania. It's a big company. He was looking to help them with their 401k plan. So Steve was going through all these concepts and gets about an hour into the presentation, and one of the executives raises his hand and says, Steve, this is all really complicated stuff. I mean, we're engineers and manufacturers. When we have a problem, we just build a machine to fix it, right? Can't you just build us an income machine? And then, just turn the switch and off it goes and the money comes out. And, he was joking, but Steve left and came back, and we started kind of noodling on that idea, and we came up with this concept called the perpetual retirement income machine. We said, that's exactly what we do. We build income machines for people. It just hasn't really been put down on paper this way. So this is what our machine looks like that we build for people, and then when they're ready to retire, we flip a switch and the money comes on. Right? I mean, wouldn't you want to have a machine like that? It's not so bad. So here are the parts that go into the machine. Any engineers or manufacturers in here? Just so you'll love this. Okay? So the red box over here, this guy right here, is the variable income driver. Okay? So this is investment-based income, that sort of thing. The green box down here is guaranteed income driver. This provides a guaranteed floor of income. You already have some of this built in. This would be your Social Security, pensions, anything like that you have. Okay? Now, what I have found is that a lot of people who, in my field, that try to plan income for people, that's where they stop. They build a variable plan that says this is what you need to take from your investments every year, don't exceed that. They might work with your Social Security, help you put that together. That's your income plan. But the problem is we just talked about all those retirement risks, right? And so what we did is we built in things like a longevity waiver and a warranty here. So this guarantees that you can't outlive the income that you build in here, right? And it's also got something called a sequence of return buffer. We're going to go into what sequence of return is. When you see it, you're going to want the buffer, okay? The inflation protection, this keeps income growing to offset increasing prices. And then the big one on top here is the tax minimizer. Minimizing taxes through retirement. Okay, so all of those are combined together to build your perpetual retirement income machine. You'll hear me refer to it as a PRIM for short, PRIM. Okay? So the PRIM is built to take care of longevity risk, excess withdrawal, inflation, and sequence of return risk. Let's talk about these risks in a little bit more detail. And guys, if I go too fast, stop me. If you have a question, stop me with this, okay? Anybody seen this picture before? No? Okay, so this here is a picture of a family, 6 generations deep. So Sarah Knaus here, when she passed away a few years ago, she was 118 years old. Okay? Now her daughter, could you imagine having a daughter that's 95? Right? Then her grandson, Bob, is 73. Great-granddaughter is 49. Great-great-granddaughter is 27. And the great-great-great-grandson is 3. Isn't that amazing? This was in the New York Times, this family. The point here is, if Sarah were sitting in this room now, and she was 65 years old, and I asked her, Sarah, how long do you think you're going to live? Do you think she would have said 118? No, and the point is we don't know how long we're going to live. But we do know we're living longer now than ever before. You know what the fastest growing segment of our population is? The fastest growing segment of our population. Somebody take a guess. Come on, I won't make fun of you. Take a guess. Anybody?
Seniors.
Seniors is right. Specifically what age group? Give me a 10-year block.
80 to 90.
Close. 90 to 100. Your fastest growing age group right now is 90 to 100 years old. That's amazing. Like I said before, longevity wasn't an issue in the 1950s, right? When you only had to plan for 5 to 7 years. But if I'm little great-great-great-grandson here, I'm kind of thinking, boy, I better start working on a plan, right? He's in his 20s now. So that's the longevity risk. And what people have, this has been a consistent pattern over the last 20 years or so, is that people, by almost a 2-to-1 margin, fear outliving their money than they do dying. And I mean, really, if you die, that kind of solves the problem of longevity, right? So I can get that part of it, but yeah, running out of money is a fear. This is people ages 44 to 75, so right in our wheelhouse here. Okay? So all of our prunes are built with a longevity waiver. Now, guys, I'm going to keep this conversation at about 10,000 feet. I'm not going to tell you exactly how the longevity waiver works, or you all fall asleep. But it's part of what is built into this. Okay? It's part of how these machines are built, because income is only so good until you run out of it, right? Now, inflation risk. This is probably something you're pretty familiar with. Is a gallon of gas more expensive now than it was 20 years ago, right? Milk is orange juice is more expensive now. Well, this is an example of that. Today, if you had $50,000 and we used around a 3% rate of inflation, in 25 years, that $50,000 would only buy you $23,000 worth of goods. This is another really big problem, and inflation is one of those things where it's kind of silent. It's always happening, but we don't really know it. We don't really pay attention to it. Then all of a sudden, you get up one day and you can't buy something that you would have been able to buy before, right? And it's kind of like a silent tax, if you will, on your investments. So another way to look at it is this. That jug of milk back in 1989 was $3.04. You could buy a nice car in 1979 for $16,000, right? 2014, that same jug of milk was $5, and now the car has almost doubled, okay? And now what it's looking like is 2039. Can you imagine paying $8 for a gallon of milk based on the rate we're going? At $62,000 for that car? So that's inflation risk. That's part of what you have to be careful of here. Now, I know these are a little hard to see. I think it's our projector. But that number there on the screen is $75,000. It's basically saying if you need $75,000 in income right now, in 5 years, you're going to need to increase that to $87,000, almost $88,000, to equal what $75,000 buys today. Everybody got that? Going forward, 10 years, it's $103,000. 15 years, it's $120,000. 20 years from now, it's $141,000, $142,000 is what you would need to have to equal what inflation is doing. So you got to make sure that you have something built on there to deal with inflation in retirement as well. So we have an inflation booster built onto the income machine. Next one that we have is something called excess withdrawal risk. And I think the best way to illustrate excess withdrawal risk is to tell you a story. So let's say that you and your spouse are on a deserted island. And as you are hunting for food, it's just the two of you and you're hunting for food, you find a big jug of water and you also find a lamp with a genie. So you rub the lamp and the genie comes out and the genie says, all right, here's how this works. You get 2 cups of water every day, and you can live comfortably on 2 cups of water. And every day I'm going to come and refill your jug with 2 cups of water. But the other rule is, if you ever exceed that and start emptying your jug, that's okay. But as soon as you get all the way to the bottom and there's no more water, I won't come back. So if you empty the jug, the genie goes away. So that's fine. You're going along for a little bit. You're drinking your 2 cups of water. You're living comfortably. And then all of a sudden, a huge heat wave comes. And the two of you are so hot, you just can't live off the 2 cups of water anymore. So you take a little bit more out of the jug. And then a little bit more time goes by, and one of you gets a really, really high fever. And you've got to drink more water. And finally, before you know it, your spouse has given you the last drops in the bottom of that jug. And then you realize the genie's not coming back. Okay? That's excess withdrawal risk. And it can happen pretty quickly and pretty easily. And it generally means that you don't end up where you want to be when that happens. Okay? This is another way to look at it. Again, the chart's a little hard to see. And this is the first time I've done a class here, so I'll probably ask them if they can give us a little bit better projector next time. But very simple chart. The blue line at the top that you can see going across there is, a lot of times we'll run scenarios on people's portfolios to say, look, if you just withdraw this amount based on a bunch of different scenarios that might happen in the market, if you only draw out this amount of money, you'll make it this far. Okay? But if you start to draw out more, green, yellow, black line, that money's going to deplete much faster. That's excess withdrawal risk. So each of our prim machines are built with variable and guaranteed income to eliminate the excess withdrawal risk. Okay? The protector that we put on there. This is impossible to see, but guess what? This is in your folder. So if you wouldn't mind pulling out this little chart, it's the S&P historical chart. Okay? I bet you can see that copy a lot better. Now, so this is kind of funny because when people come into my office, I always like to ask them, hey, how are you doing in the market? And it's amazing. No matter where we are in the cycle, people always say, Bill, I'm doing great. My investments are doing fantastic. And a lot of times when we dig into it, they haven't done quite as good, but what's happening is they generally just like to look at the good periods in their accounts, and we don't open the statements when the period is bad, right? We just put those aside. So what I want you to see is something called a compounded annual growth rate. If you look at the top of your chart there, I'm going to grab mine just so I can see it too. If you look at the top, it says compound annual growth rate, 3.08%. Everybody see that? What we're looking at here is a chart of the S&P 500 for the last 17 and a half years. And the compounded annual growth rate over that period of time is 3.08%. That's taken all the ups, all the downs, all together over that period of time. Now, that's not too far off from what the rate of inflation is either. So there's a problem here, right? You got to think about going forward, could you go another 17 and a half years without getting a whole lot of return here? Or do you want to risk that? Or maybe would you have some type of hedging strategy to keep that from happening? Okay? So here's what we're going to do, just to see what you guys think about things. You see the little period, the little part here on the right that says draw your future vision of the market? Take that pen you have there, and each of you, husband and wife, you can each draw your own line if you want. What do you think it's going to do from here? No right or wrong answer, it's just what you think.
What we think or what we want?
Yeah. I think I know what you want. Everybody draw some kind of line? Can you see my green line right here that I just put on the screen? It's going like this. Did anybody draw a line that looks like that? No? You didn't? Okay. What about that? Did anybody draw a line that looks like that one?
Yeah.
Yes.
You did? So if that's the case, then what you've done is you've taken everything you have out of the market, it's on the sidelines, right? And you're going to sit out, right? Have you? If you drew a line like that, did you do that yet? You have? Some people have, some people haven't. Maybe because you're not sure what it's going to do, right? So it might be something like that, right? There's that kind of line there. And that's the thing, we don't quite know where it's going to go, what it's going to do going forward. What I would suggest is that you have some type of hedging strategy that says, hey, I want to have the gains as it's going up, but I really want to be protected from the downside here if that sort of thing were to happen over the next few years. I mean, look, I'm in this field, I've been thinking of market corrections coming for the last 3-4 years, and it hasn't happened. I know as much as you guys do about that. So I think if anybody tells you they know when it's going to happen, they don't. They don't.
Well, they told you interest rates were going to go up when? How many years ago now?
15 years ago, right? So I'm not a prognosticator. That's not how I work. I'd rather just kind of plan and hedge differently for that, for those periods. So, by the way, and that's why I use compounded annual growth rates. I'm going to show you what that means right now. This is important because I think a lot of people will give you an average growth rate, but I'm going to show you why that's maybe not the best idea. You got the coins in front of you? All right, we're about to go invest. Everybody ready? All right. So you've got 6 coins. Everybody should have 6 coins. I want you to take 4 of them and put them in front of you, like this, like I'm doing. 4 coins. So we've got 6 coins, we're going to take 4, we're going to invest them. Everybody ready? Great, we did wonderful. Our money went up 50%. So put 2 more coins next to you, right here. So we're plus 50. See that over there? That's important. Remember that, plus 50. Uh-oh. We had a bad year. We lost 50%. So take away 3 coins and put them over here. Somebody on Wall Street got those. There you go. So we had 50 gain, we lost 50, so our average is 0, right? We don't have to be a mathematician to know that part. But here's the problem, that's not right. How is it 0? You lost. What did you lose? 25% of your money. See, a compounded annual growth rate would have that reflected in there. But just be careful if you're reading your statement or you're talking to someone and they say, well, our average growth rate has been, remember the coins. Okay? And you can even pull this out in front of them and say, how does that work? Now you know, right? That's how you do that part of it. So I'm very particular about the compounded annual growth rate. It's a much more accurate reflection of what's really going on with your money. What's really going on. Sir?
So is that equal to if you started at year 1, 3.08 is the increase?
Yep.
Doing it in a straight line.
Exactly, because it's taken the growth and the losses. It would be almost impossible for you to stomach this, but that would be riding that roller coaster all the way out. Yeah. Because you also have time counted in there as well. This one here is sequence of return risk. And I know you can't see the writing on the side, but this is a pretty easy concept. So you have 2 families, exact same investment portfolio, exact same compounded annual growth rates and returns on investment. The only difference is the couple here with the red line, their investment losses happened at the beginning of their retirement. And the blue line people, we just flipped it. They had all the growth at the beginning and they had the losses at the end. What happens here is if you have a loss early and then have to start withdrawing, the money goes down even more quickly. And it's hard to catch back up. So you can deplete the account much faster that way. Okay? If you have the growth early, that's great because all you're drawing off of for income at that point is growth. You're not drawing off the principal there. So you can handle having the losses later on in life. So it's not about even what you get on your investments as a return, it's when the returns happen. If you really want to see the impact of this, because we're now almost 10 years out from the last really big correction, right? 2008, you guys probably all remember that. Did anybody lose money back then? I'm not ashamed to say I did too. If you go on to YouTube, you can put in 401k 60-minute story, if you've ever watched it. You may remember when it came on. It came on in April of 2009. When all of these retirees, or pre-retirees, they were just a couple of years away, were standing in line at a job fair, and they had their statements with them, and one of the 60 Minutes personalities was interviewing them, and you could see this. This is what her chart looked like. And she was crying, and she said, I'll never be able to retire. I don't know what came of that person. But she was exactly what sequence of return risk is. And it's so devastating, and frankly, where we are on this chart, it's like a sequence of return bubble waiting to burst. Okay, everybody got that one? Sequence of return risk. So our prims come with a sequence of return buffer. So that doesn't happen when you build a machine like this. Again, I've seen it far too often in my career where I will talk with other people in my field and they focus on these 2 drivers right here, right? But if you leave out the retirement risks that we just looked at, I think you're missing a big part of it because you can still be completely exposed in retirement with your income. Now, anybody know what the greatest expense in retirement is going to be?
Healthcare.
Healthcare, what'd you say? Medical. Everybody thinks healthcare?
Texas.
Taxes. So, for every dollar you get, or $100 you get, you have $29.20 you have to give over to the IRS in taxes. Now, here's what I do a whole class just on taxes. This is so important because when you hit your RMD age, does everybody know what age that is? 70 and a half. We know what happens, right? If you have money in 401k or IRA, you have to start taking it out, right? Well, there's something else that's happened in your tax picture at the same time. all those deductions that you had when you were working are pretty much gone. If you had a mortgage interest deduction, if you had kids with you, charity, and the contributions to your retirement, those are the big four. You're not doing that anymore for the most part. So all of your deductions are at their lowest point, which means the income that you take out is now being taxed at a much higher marginal rate. So this is what's going to get a lot of people coming up. So the tax part of this, we have what's called a tax minimizer and a zero tax plan that we put into these on that tax buffer. It's huge. And like I said, there's a whole course that we teach just on the tax part of this because it's so important. Americans spend 29.2% of our income on taxes each year. That's today. I don't know what it's going to be like in 10 years. So there it is, greatest expense is taxes. So our machine has that tax minimizer on it, and if you build it properly, you should be able to reduce your taxes 40, 50, 60% from what they were going to be. And here's the thing, if you do it right, and if you have your taxes, your tax situation worked out properly, you can even have your Social Security income tax-free as well. Did you know that? If they're, the way they actually tax Social Security, if you understand how that works, or you do that inside of this machine, you can build it so that your Social Security income is tax-free as well. We do that all the time. So the tax minimizer. Okay, so we got all the risks, right? Everybody okay on the risks? We got a lot of minefields out there we got to navigate through. Look at these guys here. The question is, how do you manage risk? Anybody know what building this was they were putting up? Not the Empire State Building. There are pictures of that, not this one. This is the most famous one.
Rockefeller Center.
Rockefeller Center. Look at these guys. I don't even like getting up on a stepladder, and they're sitting on this thing. Just light this guy's lighting this guy's cigarette over here. I mean, just eating lunch. Pretty amazing. So the question is, how do you manage risk, right? So let's picture this. We're on a journey to go to a meeting. And on our way to the meeting, we got to go over this mountain, and there's this big crevasse that we come to, right? And so we've got a decision to make. Are we going to run and jump over it? Are we going to turn around and go back? Or are we going to build a bridge to go over it? These are the three different types of risk styles that are out there. Okay? So we call the risk taker, that's the person that's going to jump over. We call that person, a person that will take systematic withdrawals from their machine. I'll show you what that looks like. The risk avoider uses a flooring strategy. They don't like risk. They want everything mapped out. And then the risk manager uses what's called a bucket strategy. So here's the risk takers. This is what their machine looks like. Notice that the variable income driver up here on top is much bigger than the guaranteed income driver on the bottom. Okay? Because risk takers love variable things. So here's what you have. Over here, this is the prim fuel supply. Don't let the numbers bother you. It's just a round number that I use to make this work. $1 million is the fuel supply. It all goes into the variable income driver right here. Now, even though they like the variable income, they still have some guaranteed income down here. They've got Social Security, $35,000, and they've got a pension of about $10,000 a year. So that's $45,000. They're going to draw the other $40,000 they need out of this variable income driver up here. Everybody got that? That's what their machine looks like. So here's what that looks like in a rising market. We have our $1 million, we take a withdrawal out, but it's okay because we're growing faster than we can take money out. So that works out pretty well. Here's what it looks like in a falling market, that sequence of return. See, now we're taking out $40,000 each year and losing money, so it's going down pretty quickly. We end up at 637. So the triangle you can draw between those two is what we call the risk taker's uncertainty zone. And this is good. Risk takers love uncertainty. So they want to have a big uncertainty zone. Then we've got the risk avoider. This is the person that turns around and just walks back in a different direction. Okay? Their fuel supply is $1 million, and they do not put any money in the variable income driver because they do not like anything. As a matter of fact, there's not even an output for it here, so they're not going to get any money from that one. They're going to build everything in the guaranteed side here because it makes them feel more comfortable. And again, they've got $35,000 in Social Security, they've got 10,000 from a pension, and then these are all annuities. You've probably heard the term annuity. Annuity just means a guaranteed payment. So your Social Security is an annuity structure. Pension is an annuity structure, and you can buy an annuity, a private one. So that's what they did. They put 727 in, they get 40,000 out, and they still have 272,000 over here on the side. That's the risk avoider structure. Okay? So in a rising market with a risk avoider, it looks like this. This is the money that was on the side that they didn't need to put anywhere. They just put it in a real conservative place. This here is the money from the annuity, so it's drawing out income, and they're left over here. Those two numbers come down. At the end of our time period, they have 1,014,000. So if you compare that to the systematic withdrawal, they're not too far off. And they had to take a lot less risk to get there. Now in a falling market for the risk avoider, this is what it looks like. Okay? Their 272 decline sum. The payments that come out of here draw down, we're at 777. But it's better than the systematic, the risk takers withdrawals. They actually end up with more that way. So the uncertainty zone for the risk avoider is a lot smaller because they don't want to have risk. It looks like that. And if you put the two over top of each other, if you draw a triangle here, I don't know why it's not showing up because it's gray on my screen. This is the risk takers, and this is the risk avoiders, much less uncertainty. So those are the first two. And now the third one was the person who builds the bridge to get over, right? And that person's prim looks like this. They're going to do something called an income floor. Would it be better if I turned the lights down or off?
Yes.
You guys want to try that?
Yeah.
I think we know each other well enough now. You seem comfortable. How's that?
It's much better.
That much better? All right. We'll start at the beginning. You want me to go back and just start over then? Because this is okay.
We got it.
You're okay? You got it? All right. So this is the same deal again. We're trying to get 85,000. 35,000 is our Social Security. 10,000 from the pension. And then they've got an annuity here that's going to provide 30. So they wanted some of it to come from guaranteed side, but it's not everything. So they only have 75, they need 85. So then what you do is you go up to your variable driver up here, and we do something called consumption-based investment buckets. That sounds really technical, but it's really easy. What you do is you build things out over, say, a 5-year period. And you figure out what you're going to need for the first 5 years, the second 5 years, third, fourth, and so on. So for example, I'm right here. We need $10,000 for the first 5 years to get this 75,000 to 85. So what you'll probably do is maybe put 50,000 in a savings account. You're not going to earn very much on it, but you know you'll have that there for the 5-year period. All right? Then at the same time, you know going out that you're going to have to increase the money that you need because of inflation. You need more. So in this case, you might take, say, 85,000 at 3%, let it grow for 6 years, and it's going to grow to 99,000. Then you can start taking the payments out there. At the same time that's going on, you've got a third bucket that you know you're going to need in year 11. And so you invest 96,000 at 5%, it's going to grow to 157, and it provides you with 31,000 a year. And then the last period that I have on here might be a little bit more aggressive. You need 703,000 at that point, so this is the chunk, but you don't need it for 16 years. So you're going to put it away, let it grow at 8%, and then when you're ready, it'll pay out the 45,000 you need. So what it's doing this whole time is it's keeping up with inflation with your income. So that's one way that you can build the managed bucket scenario in that. Okay? And really, most people are kind of risk managers. They like to have things in multiple areas. It doesn't mean that that's the right way to do it or not. It's just the way that that most people will do it. So this here, with all of the protections built into it, is a fully ready to go, $85,000 a year, ready to run prim machine. And this is what it looks like if you come in and you do this with me. This is what you're going to get. Okay, you'll get something that looks just like this as a printout to build for you. Let's do a comparison of all those uncertainty zones. That is really hard to see. I'll draw it for you. Risk taker is like this up here. Risk avoider, you can see, is the green one. The risk manager is in between the two. So that's the risk manager's uncertainty zone. Okay, let me put the parts together for you here. Who can build one of these for you? I'm not saying you have to come see me, but if you're going to go out and look for something like this, who's really qualified to do it for you? Well, I like to say that in our field, you can kind of draw a line down the middle here, and the green side is more principally guaranteed type products. So that's going to be insurance agents. Okay? The red side, and this is not saying that green is good and red is bad or anything like that. It's just a way for us to kind of delineate. The red side would be more of your investment managers, your stockbrokers, bankers, that type of thing. Now, the problem is that most times insurance agents can't do what the investment managers can do. And vice versa, the investment managers can't do what the insurance agents can do. So there's a little bit of a problem there. All right? Now, I'm a little bit different in how I do things. I'm a fiduciary, which means I can do anything on that scale there. I also put up there on holistic, unbiased, objective. I think that's the kind of person you're looking for. Again, it doesn't have to be me. What I mean by holistic is, yes, we build the machines, but what we do is a lot more comprehensive in nature. There's a lot of other things that go into this as well, that go into your financial world that we deal with. I'm unbiased in this. I have to be unbiased. I can't bring in what I think is good into your scenario, for example. Okay? I have to put that aside, and I have to work towards what's best for you. And then I have to be objective, which means I'm building something with you, coordinating with you to build something, or with my clients to build something, and it really doesn't matter to me what they pick, as long as it works for what they want to do. Okay? So, when you are looking for someone, ask them if they're a fiduciary or if they're an insurance agent or a stockbroker or what they do. There's a difference in how you do that. So here we are, okay? We're on our journey. I think if you build something like that, some type of structure like that in some form, what happens is those risks go away. Okay? You basically eliminate them, you minimize them, and you end up in peace of mind bill. Peace of mind might be different for a lot of people, but the way I kind of define it is you can put your head on the pillow at night, you can rest, and you don't have to worry about those things happening to you. Okay? Now, I like to tell people that the building of the machines, as the analogy goes, is one of the things that we do, but it's only one thing. It's up here in a wheel of things that we do. We provide people with world-class money managers and make sure that those strategies, that they have hedging strategies. If you don't know if the market's going to go up or go down or sideways or what, it's probably a good idea to have a little bit of a hedging strategy there. We can do reviews on insurance. Have old policies been reviewed? Are they expensive? Do you need them or not? Who do you call when things happen? I like to be the ally for my clients. If a bump comes up in the road, I want them to call me. That's what I'm here for. Okay? Do you have a tax reduction strategy for your 401k and your IRA, that type of thing? Healthcare cost planning. Now, I know a lot of people mentioned the healthcare thing. So if healthcare costs $972,000, can you imagine what taxes are going to be if they're supposed to be higher? Who's going to help you manage that part of it? The big one is estate planning. Do you have a trust, will, powers of attorney, all that type of thing in place? And then the actual machine, do you have the right income sequence? All of that built together. That's essentially what a fiduciary should do for you. Okay? So what do we say? Let's see if we can build a prim for you. But I want to end this with a little bit of a story because I think this helps illustrate it. It's a story about a farmer in the Midwest. Anybody here from the Midwest? It's a big general term, the Midwest. We know it's over there somewhere, right? On the map. Farmer in the Midwest puts an ad in the paper because he needs a new farmhand to help him. And he's a little disappointed because he only gets response from one person to be a farmhand. But he decides he's going to interview the young man anyhow. He needs help. So he brings the guy in. And he says, son, tell me, what do you know about working on a farm? And the boy says, sir, I don't know anything about working on a farm, but I know how to sleep on windy nights. The farmer says, okay, it's a little strange, but really, I need to know, what do you know about livestock? Can you help me with the animals, everything that I have to do there? He says, well, no, sir, I've never done anything like that, but I know how to sleep on windy nights. Well, now the farmer's getting a little annoyed, okay? You must know something about the farm equipment. Can you help me repair farm equipment? No, sir, I don't know anything about tractors, but I know how to sleep on windy nights. Right? So the farmer says, all right, I don't have any other options, I'm going to give you a shot. Now, a long time ago, farmhands lived on the farm, right? So one night, everybody's asleep, and all of a sudden a storm blows up. So the farmer jumps out of bed, starts running down the hallway, banging on the door, get the farmhand up. Come on, we got to get out there. We got to secure everything. A big storm's coming, right? Farmhand never gets up. Farmer runs out of the house, runs down to the barn, gets down there, realizes, well, everything in here is secure. The animals are right where they're supposed to be. So he runs over to his other shed where his equipment is. He's soaking wet. Looks at it. Everything's been secured, put away, covered up. Then he runs into the stockhouse and he sees that all the hay's been baled and tied up. It's all out of the weather. Scratches his head, soaking wet, runs back into the house, goes back to bed. Gets up the next morning. He's at the breakfast table and the farmhand comes in. He says, where were you last night? We had a terrible storm. Didn't you hear it? Why didn't you come help me? He said, sir, don't you remember what I told you when you hired me? I know how to sleep on windy nights. Point is here, we've talked a lot about money, and money's important, but money's just the fuel for the journey you're going on, right? It's just the fuel. So now it's your job to figure out how to manage that fuel properly so you can enjoy the journey. That's all it is, so that you can sleep on the windy nights, because the windy nights are going to come, okay? Don't let that come by you. Now here's what we'll do. That's all I have tonight to talk to you about, just under an hour. And I like to do everything just under an hour. If you come to see me, you're not going to be trapped. Okay? My meetings are always an hour or less. I even have a timer on my desk that beeps when it's time to go. If you want to come in and see me, it does, I promise. I'll show it to you. It sounds like the fry thing at McDonald's. If you want to come in and see me, there's a couple ways we can do this, because there's a lot of people in here. First of all, I pretty much cleared my calendar out next week for you guys, and I'm also doing a class on Tuesday, so it will fill up. At the bottom of your event registration form, if you kind of know your schedule and you want to pick a day and a time, that kind of thing, you can do that. Another option, when Natasha gets up and she's going to kind of see you guys out, that type of thing, over there on the table, it's a little thing we do with Post-it notes where I put some times and some dates down. You can grab one of the Post-it notes, write your name on it, drop it in the fishbowl, okay, and you can be off. And then the third way is we've got a calendar and you can do that sort of thing too. Here's what's going to happen if you come see me. We're going to talk for about 45 minutes. We're not going to talk about products. We probably won't even talk about your money. We're going to figure out if we like each other. You're going to figure out if you like me, and I'm going to figure out if I think I can work with you. If we get to the end of 45 minutes, Al, can I use you as an example? I promise I won't embarrass you. So Al, we've been talking for about 45 minutes. I think it's gone great, but you don't want to come back to see me, okay? So I'm going to say something like, Al, I've really enjoyed this conversation. What do you think? Would you like to come back in maybe for another time, another appointment? And you say, no thanks. You see, he says no thanks. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, why not? No, I'm going to say, Al, it's been really fun. It's been good to get to know you. I appreciate it. I wish you the best, okay? When I see Al at Costco or Sam's Club, Al's not going to hide behind the giant mayonnaise jars because he sees me, right? Because Al's going to be okay and I'm going to be okay. So I won't take it personally and hold it against you. And I won't even sell you a timeshare there, okay? It's that easy. You want a timeshare?
No, what I want to know is how do we know you don't want to see us again?
I'll probably offer you a biscotti and a cup of coffee,
Okay.
and just we'll walk out.
Okay.
No, that's not how it goes. Yeah, so that's it. It's that easy. I try to make this fun. I try to make this so that everyone can understand what we're doing, because one of my rules is if you don't understand what you're doing, you shouldn't do it. Okay?
The only thing you didn't talk about tonight was the tax.
Yeah, I could spend about 5 hours doing that. That's another class. When you come in to see me, I talk about that a little bit more. There's a whole course that we do on that specifically. But we make sure that we bring that course into the construction of your machine. Yep, absolutely. That's part of what happens.
So do you offer this course in Texas?
Yeah, I don't have one on the calendar right now, but I'm probably going to do one in January. Yeah.
Can we make note?
You can, well, I've got your information. What I'll do is when I get one scheduled, I can reach out to you and let you know when it is.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
Well, let me do this because I know some people probably do have to leave, that sort of thing. Thank you guys. I hope, did this help? Was it worth the time coming here? Good. If you'd like to pick out a time to come and see me, I'd love to sit down with each one of you and talk about, you know, your questions and stuff more. There you go. Whoa.
Sorry.
My retinas are crazy. You know, in more detail, that type of thing. And I thank you guys for coming out, and look forward to seeing you.